Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for coming, wrapping up your lunch, and coming to see what we have to offer. We're a little last-minute edition. We want to do a quick demo of what the Quartus team has been up to for the last few months, basically since the Volcano Summit. I'm sarlev-sarsen. This is litneb-maltyp, and we're here to talk about a new era for trust. If my slides want to go that way, I guess. Maybe you can. So, why are we in Wyoming? Like, Cheyenne's kind of hard to get to. We've heard a lot of people talk about community. Balaji at Assembly last year said Urbit's killer app is community. But I think there's a more specific reason to why the community is great. And it's basically that Urbit brings trust to the network age. This is why a bunch of us went to a random volcano in El Salvador without much guidance. We're like, oh yeah, this is going to work out, I'm sure. Going to recently reformed, violent South American country is safe. And this is really important, but it's something that as the Urbit network grows, kind of well beyond the Dunbar number, and starts to pass the threshold of a large tribe. I think we maybe have 4,000 or 5,000 ships on the network now. The size and shape of the network is surpassing what we can do for discovery, filtering, curation just in our own minds. So we want to build some tools, some underlying protocols that make it so that you can expand beyond what your brain can hold. One of the great ways to think about this, in contrast to Web 2, is if ownership means holding, if ownership of your money means holding your keys, ownership of your relationships means holding your social graph. So we've been building Aera for the last few months, and now are ready to release just a little proof of concept prototype called Monera, because it's the small version, which you can actually go, and I would encourage you to go download it right now from distro.dalton, and you can follow along and check out some of the stuff if you like. With that, I'll kind of hand over to Litneb to kind of talk a little bit about the thought process behind Monera and some of the design decisions that were made.
Cool. All right, so yeah, I definitely would encourage you to go to distro.dalton, download this, because a portion of this is in constructing some of this reputation for individual ships is marking somebody as real. And since we're all here and we can look each other in the eyes and know that one another is real, then I would encourage you to do that on the app. But Monera started, maybe in the last few months or so as a grant, and we've been in the research phase of the grant. This first iteration of it, and I think we're pulling up a demo here, or you got it. So the first iteration of the grant, if you want to scroll to the top, is basically 3 agents, and they're super simple agents, but they represent 3 different, types of primitives that we want people to build using this Monera protocol. The first one is basically a listener agent, and if you look up here at the very top, we have basically a place to input a ship. When you put your ship in there, you're going to be deriving a reputational score, and underneath it is a list of the different ships that you've plugged in there, and a few different categories of the scores that are derived. So we have, on the far right, you can see some reacts, just a thumbs up and a thumbs down, and that's an example of a listener agent that we have for Monera that scours all your chats through all the neighbors with which you're deriving the score from to see how many people are liking your posts and how many people are disliking them. The second example that we have of a primitive agent for the reputation protocol is like an active input agent, and that's next to it you can see just the word real, and at the bottom of this Monera app you can actually put in a ship and you can say, is this person real or is this person fake? When you poll all of your pals, or eventually the neighbors whom you decide, it doesn't have to be your pals, you can create a score derived from all of their inputs. Is this person real? Is this person fake? The last agent that we have on there, if you want to scroll to the top, the last one that we have up there is we just call score, and this is the example of an aggregator agent. So we take the score from the first one, which we call Alfie, the second one, which we call beer, and we apply a little math to it, and then we create a score. So the idea is that after aggregating multiple versions of these reputational agents, you can have kind of a contextual score on somebody's reputation. If we go a little bit below, you can see this list of neighbors. It pre-populates with all of your pals, but the idea in the future, moving forward, we could say, hey, what does the entire group of Hooniversity, what do they think about Sarlev's ability to write good Hoon? Right, so we want to have multiple ways to change the inputs from who we're polling, and then obviously change who it is that we're applying the score to. But I would encourage you to download it and start, seeding the network with some of these reputational scores so people who didn't make it here can start seeing who was real, who was not.
Yeah. So, obviously this is just sort of the smallest little proof of concept of these ideas, but you could certainly imagine the stuff that could get built on top of this. Personalized ratings, I don't know how often people go to Google and they're like, this was a 5-star rating, and I went to that restaurant and it sucked because I don't like spicy food, or name the thing. But you could start saying, hey, I'm getting ratings on these things based on not what the world says about this thing, but that the people that I trust about a certain topic are saying about it. You could do things cross-platform. So now you're starting to get, someone's Uber, driver rating can start to influence the way that you're thinking about, how they talk about car recommendations. So it starts to be much more interesting across a variety of use cases. You can think about this on sort of the open source software, let's call it monetization problem, where what are you going to do if someone's just always stealing or can just copy your code and run it themselves? Well, like as Hardin Hardis says, a certain level of piracy is actually desirable, but it's just another mechanism for price discrimination. And if maybe you want to hang out with people that are always pirating their software, so that's a network you go into. But maybe you also want to be hanging out with people who are funding the developers that are building the cool shit. And if you see across their reputation score that they're kind of always stealing software, you give them a little bit of a cold shoulder the next time they want to hang out. Of course, we're building this for everybody on Urbit and kind of building it in public. Like Taylor said, this is kind of milestone 1 of a 5-milestone project. We've been meeting in the Urbit Hacker House Gather Town every week, 9 a.m. Pacific time. We'd love to kind of have people come in and start to think about how they want to use some of this functionality in their apps, because we're about to hit the stage where now we're going to build the Aera agent and sort of the underlying API and interface for that. So we want to see what inputs and other thoughts that people have to integrate. We also are getting funded by the public. So we have currently raised about $40,000 in just donations, pledges from the community, various Galaxy owners, the Urbit Foundation, and we are using another lovely Quartus Technology Fund to solicit those funds. So if you go to the Aera desk, you'll see that there's a funding campaign there, and you can make a pledge, say, hey, I want to contribute to this. Those funds get controlled by the Dalton collective escrow team, and then are only released once milestones are met and satisfied to the escrow team's satisfaction. So come hang out, tell us what you want to see, help us build it, help us fund it, and download it and make sure that you know that the people that you're talking to on the internet are real. I guess, yeah, questions? Anyone have questions for us? Yes. Oh, yeah, you need a microphone, I suppose.
So will this replace I actually meant Minderfold and Gora that I send to people that I meet in real space?
It doesn't need to replace it, but it could augment it. You could imagine a world where perhaps you have if this then that style agent running on your ship, where you give someone a beer rating and then it just automatically issues them a Gora. That would be awesome. Easy, fun, lovely.
Nice.
And then there's definitely a shout out to the dev team that couldn't make it here. They're stuck on the East Coast and stuff. But normal postum and litneb-maltyp are the great minds behind the app, and we're just the front men. Yes.
Kind of changed my mind about the question. I was going to ask if there are disagreements in the network, like if some of my friends say something's good and others say it's bad, what happens there?
Vinny was a plant.
Just a little bit.
And so one of the important parts about this is a subjective reputation graph. So your view of the graph is what you think it is and what you want it to be. A great example of this in Monera that we've had lots of internal debates on is like what makes someone real. You know, it's the agent's called beer because it's like I can have a beer with them. You'll see I put Zod. I gave the Zod a fake because Zod isn't really a person. But you could say, I know that Mark's always running Zod, so like I'm going to give it the thumbs up. Like so, this is all subjective to you, and you can kind of just get a consensus around people, or you could say we disagree, and that's okay too.
Any other questions? No? Let's give it up.
Awesome.
for Cora.
Thanks everybody.